Do you want to know what's going round? See what's the talk of the town on Real Talk on the radio today.
And welcome to Real Talk Radio 97.5 and KDW.com, broadcasting from the Remax Palm Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. We have two really cool things to announce. Our sponsors for WKDW Radio, Remax Palm Realty and Hardin Insurance Group, they're major contributors to our radio station, and we deeply appreciate that. We have a new one coming on board, Lions Title and Trust. They will be coming on board as soon as their check comes in the mail, but that's another great asset to the citizens of Northport. So give a special shout out to those businesses that are contributing. We also have a lot of participation at the $65 a month level, and we do appreciate all of the advertising dollars that are coming into the radio station. So thank you to everyone that is participating in that, and we look forward to working with anyone in the future. Also, I've got this very special guest in the house who hasn't been on for a while, but is a regular, so to speak, because when I've had short notice and she's been willing to jump on, but she's also in her last leg of 8 years, I can say. But our Commissioner Debbie McDowell, how are you?
I'm fantastic, John. Gosh, it's been a long time since this all started, and hard to believe that 8 years is coming to a close.
It is, and I've done a lot of exit shows over my 7 years of doing these, and my statements are never different. They're always the same. It's anyone's level of commitment to any organization, let alone a commissioner. There's a lot of kudos that goes out to whoever's doing that, and you're not by yourself in the ones that have termed out. We've had Vanessa on, who I think Vanessa's kind of the one special one that kind of got an extra term in. But we've had a lot of sitting commissioners that are really they've been the fabric of our city. So I've done this with you before, the Q&A side of it. So I'm gonna throw it at you and say, your first 4 years to your second 4 years, what did you see different? How have you looked at things different now through your lens?
Well, the first 4 years was busy really getting to understand the processes and the procedures. The first 4 years was, and I can't even say 4 years. I think it's taken about 18 months for me. Those first 18 months was really getting to know the processes, procedures, the staff, how things just generally work in government. And then the last probably 6 years, it was taking that knowledge and sharing it with my fellow citizens, sharing that knowledge with potential candidates, sharing that knowledge with commissioners as I am able to because of sunshine laws. And just advocating for things that I thought were in the best interest of the city's future. So I did a lot of education, a lot of town halls, a lot of Northport Government and U classes. I also started about 4 years ago taking people on the tour of the city of Northport through my eyes. And we would go on for like a 3-hour tour of the city, show them different things that were happening. And I geared that tour based on who the attendee was. And then we would go out and grab lunch and, call it a day. So it was really just sharing about the city that I love and about being a commissioner. And I did that not only, through those town halls and the classes and tours, but also on my Facebook page, and just in various different guest speakers, like even with your radio show or through an HOA. So I tried to be out there and help citizens really understand what Northport government is really about.
We've had some changes. Do you have turn, I think, your sound down just a tad bit on your side. I don't know. There's some feedback coming in. Just a little bit.
Is that okay?
It's yeah, because it's not on. I know it's not on this end, so I seem to fix it right there. So we've had a lot of changeover, and I say that because we had Mike Morales on the other day, and Mike Morales has been around a long time.
Your blurby thing needs to change at the bottom.
My blurby thing.
Yeah, who the guest speakers are. There's not 5 of us or 6 of us. It's just me.
I grabbed the wrong one. Thank you for noticing that.
Good. I just want to make
my
sure.
Blurby thing. Well, there we go. My blurby thing is out of the way. I grabbed the wrong one.
It's okay, John. So go ahead.
Nothing like mass confusion going on it. I didn't know what a blurby thing was either. How about a ticker tape?
Okay, I like blurby thing.
Blurby thing works. So you've got all kinds of stuff that you've done, and you've changed some of the I think things for the good. I think the show has done that. I think Northport Forward has done a lot of that by kind of pushing the communication out from the city. The city is getting a voice. I think that it desperately needed for decades. While there were citizens that gave it that voice, I think the city actually has a voice now. Do you feel that way?
I think everybody plays a different role. I can only do what I can do, and I understand that WKDW radio station, with your help, definitely has done these guest speaker shows with the fellow commissioners and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, I think everybody's voice is important.
Sure. I agree with that. I've been here a long time, along with you and Mike, and I'll go back to what he was saying. He made reference to the police department, and he said, back in the day, and I hate to use a term like that, back in the day, because now I feel old. But he said back in the day, we used to wake up the police department with a phone call, and they would get dressed and they would go. And look at what we have today. It's really, it's not been that long. We're a young city, and we're growing leaps and bounds, and we're battling through some things. But I think that it's more exciting now and you've been through 8 years of kind of this transition, because the radio station, while it was involved, wasn't involved when you started. It was kind of grinding at that point. Northport Forward wasn't around. Some of these other groups that were out there weren't around, but it's that communication and the town halls that you do, they're a value too. And I think that changed the landscape of the future of what future commissioners are going to have to strategize and look at differently. They may not do town halls, but they may do some other things, because I think you guys all have your own input. Like you said, you can only do what you can do, and others can only do what they do. But I think unilaterally, I think you all do a great job together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think our city's moving forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And so you've got a vision of what you thought our city should look like. Do you think we're on the right track?
There's a lot of things that we're on the right track for. Absolutely. I mean, geez, I've lived here in Northport. We bought our first house here in Northport in 92. So it's 33 years ago almost.
Absolutely.
And it was funny when people would say to me, "Why did you choose Northport to buy a house?" And I said, because I wanted my kids to grow up with Northport. With who gets to say their kid gets to grow up with their city? I mean, that to me is just phenomenal. And back then, who would have thought that this mom would have been a commissioner to help shape what that future is going to look like, and hopefully leave an indelible mark on the city for years and years to come. It's just phenomenal, but it's not something that I could do by myself. It took, the four other commissioners, and listening to each of them and what they brought to the table in that decision making authority, was just that's what shapes the city. I mean, me doing a town hall, that's what I did as a commissioner. Me doing my Northport Government and U classes, that's what I did as a commissioner. Going to be guest speakers at various places, that's what I did as a commissioner. It's not written in stone that anybody has to do that. It's what I wanted to do because I wanted to be approachable and accountable to the citizens. And I thought that was a way to be able to do that. That was the foundation of my campaign back in 2015 when I filed my paperwork. So I had to live up to that requirement that I made of myself.
I've been to your town hall meetings, and I'm going to classify that as I think there's good and bad and ugly that comes with every town hall meeting. I don't want to pick on you individually. Because I watch a lot, and at any level, when you hold a town meeting, you never know where it's going to go. And even when
that's the beauty of them.
It is. It's like, everybody challenges people to say they never hold town hall meetings. And I had a discussion with Robin yesterday and pointed out to Robin that, every guest that's on this show, it's a town hall meeting, because if there's a question, and I do have comments coming for you, but everybody has their option of commenting or asking a question or getting their voices heard, whether it be through this or your format or any others. But that's what's changed. I think that by itself, the social media aspect of everything, the influencers that are out there. Phil's now doing town hall meetings and getting into the depths of that. And I think that's going to change with a lot of people who are coming in and going and strategizing differently. And, Northport Forward doing their thing, and broadcasting them. All that's just, that to me, that's like the growth of the city, because it's transforming on the media side. It's transforming on the growth side. It's transforming. And I don't know that we're going to slow this machine down at this point.
It's true. I mean, as long as there's an audience that's willing to participate and willing to ask their questions, and there's, a commissioner, I'm only going to speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But if a commissioner is willing to put themselves out there to do a town hall, regardless if it's your kind of radio show or was what my town hall is,
right,
each one has its own value. You're the facilitator of this town hall, whereas when I did my town halls, I was in charge of it all. It was my way of being involved in the community and trying to reach out to the citizens.
Well, and
each one of them has a different role and a different goal.
See, and I've known you a long time, so this is actually, there are some tough questions I want to ask, and
ask them.
I know, and that's because
ask them. That's what this is about.
I understand. So I look at each one of you guys, and I have said these things over and over again to all of you, that I don't think there's one of you that cares more than the other. Everybody has their own aspects of it, but I believe, while there are people out there that say Debbie McDowell is the only commissioner, I don't think you are the only commissioner. You're one of five, and your value is one of five who does their job. But I think all five of you collectively do their part. I think instrumentally, I think it's that way, and I hope you see it that way, and I think you do. but it's the people that are out there that don't have the I guess the ability to take in what you do is different than anybody has ever done. I don't know. Did we ever have anybody that did social media before through or not social media, the town hall meetings? Have we ever had anybody in the past really do what you are doing?
I I honestly don't know.
Remember
I
that.
know that the commission did do town halls way before I became a commissioner. They did town halls. For whatever reason, those kind of went away. You have to realize that in 2016, when I came on board, social media, yeah, it was around, but it was in its infancy. Not very many people really did social media. Even 8 years ago, 10 years ago. When I look back, my first time I ever got on Facebook was like 11 years ago. Okay. I've been on social media for 8 years. So for 3 years, I didn't really go on social media except to, chat with my family and stuff like that and share some pictures. It was still really in its infancy. Um, so to say that nobody else did social media or nobody else held town halls, one, I can't speak to the town hall part because I really wasn't paying attention. But the social media, I think, was still in its infancy in 2016 when I came on board. I remember Commissioner Hanks when we were doing social media, and he was the one who was able to convince us that we need to be able to have the city capture those posts instead of me as an individual commissioner. Oh my gosh, what a chore that was. So, because everything that I posted on social media as a commissioner, I had to capture every single one of them. So now that the city captures it, it makes it so much easier and much more inviting and able to have those kind of interactions with the citizens. So yeah, 8 years ago of social media or 10 years ago of social media is completely different than today. Completely. And that's just because social media wasn't really that big of a deal back then.
I've been doing a lot of, and this all stems from Robin's conversation. We talked for over 3 hours yesterday, and it was a really good conversation because it really, I think, highlighted a little bit to her who I was, and I think educated her on why I do my show, why I present it like I do. And it's for people like Sean who just asked this question. Would Commissioner McDowell consider hosting a regular local politics show on WKDW? Listeners could call in and ask questions, clarifications, and explanations on commission meetings, votes, and she would be great at it. So things like that. That's people asking questions, people wanting more. Chuck English, he would love to ask them questions on and my screen just bounced, but on especially as it relates to urban sprawling. I know you've got a great relationship with Chuck. I know you have all these people that are there. I Those are the regulars. Those are my regulars, your regulars. Sean does a show with me on Tuesday. But what even Robin and I yesterday we're standing back going, there are a lot of people that really don't get involved in the city, and they don't know that you have town halls. There's a select. I've been to the town halls. There's still, and I hate to sound like this, but we were in boosters together at the high school, and the booster organization is still 3 or 4 people total, and that's insane. But we've all lived through these moments, and yet things are surviving. Things are trying to grab hold. Things are changing. I think they're ever moving parts to almost everything that you and I have ever been involved in. And I don't think any of them are at the level that the city is. I think the city is like blown this thing apart because we're starting to get projects done. We're seeing the end result of, I think, a stagnant government before. And what you guys have done over your 8 years, to me, is amazing, because things are moving. You know, we've got Toledo Blade. You turned around the Dollar General, but we still have that neighborhood store, that neighborhood feel where it's at. And I look at it that way. And it's not a broken lens. You know, it's one of those things where I think in totality, we're a city for a change. I don't think we're even being looked at it at the county level anymore like we were when I moved here. Do you feel that way? Because I know you've got to at this point.
Well, John, it's not apples and apples. You know, when I moved here, the population was barely 15,000.
I agree.
Okay. So to compare 30 years, there's absolutely no comparison. To compare today to even 5 years ago, there's no comparison. To compare today to 20 years ago, there's no comparison. Because what the commission, and I'm hearing this more and more, and I'm sorry, John, but it kind of bothers me that lately we're getting things done. These legacy projects are getting done. And that is so disingenuous to former commissioners who focused on the issues at hand at that time. You know, Sumter Boulevard was a nightmare for the longest of time. And those commissions did what they needed to do to get Sumter taken care of, because that was the issue at the time. Toledo Blade was the issue at the time. They got it done. They did what they needed to do based on the needs of the city at that time. So to compare and say, oh, this commission's getting everything done, that's really unfair to every other commission before us, because they got things done that needed to get done at that time.
So if it was unfair for that, then it would be unfair to say that about this current commission for getting them all done.
It had to start somewhere.
I agree with you. You and I are not different in that regard. It's that there are people that don't think a lot of these things needed to get done. While we can, I guess, have the discussion over the wording of it all, at the end of the day, I've been involved with every commissioner since I moved here, and I have not met one of them that I don't show the utmost respect to because of the work and the time they put in. None of us did that. You did that. You've done all those things, but I don't think there's one commission more valuable than the other, because they all represent
absolutely
a time frame.
Absolutely.
And so the essence to this current commission, though, is they are no matter how you want to look at it, you guys are the example. That's how I look at it. You guys are collectively the example of the new release of Northport. It's not, and I think the next commission and the next one, I don't think we're going to go backwards at this point. I think what the steps are going to be now are strategically faster. And because our city isn't going to slow down. We're going to go to 100,000, and then we're going to go to 125 faster than we hit, 25,000 the first set of years. We're going to blow the doors off of that. And all that being said, one of the guests that was on the show the other day was very, very understanding about the city, but he didn't live here. He has his business here, but we can still travel from one side of town to the next in about 18 minutes. And I find that to be amazing when we have 97,000 people here. And do I feel like it's the town I moved into? Absolutely not. This is
no, it's not.
It is not. And we're never, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think, again, is I don't think I moved into a city that I thought was going to be the podunk town it was when I moved here. I moved into a city. I thought it was going to grow. That's what cities do. Cities change. I watched a thing on Manhattan, and that we talked about social media. Social media for some reason fed Manhattan into my reels, and I watched this reel on Manhattan, and I never understood Manhattan. I never had a tie to anywhere up there. But when they went through the same grind that we're going through now, how they laid out the city, and the city wasn't there, and the roads were mapped out, and gosh, that looks like us, and our roads are mapped out. We have a lot of empty lots, and Manhattan had that, and they strategically laid things out. And I think we general development, kind of did that, but we've had to adjust for some things because general development did what they were supposed to do, and they sold lots for houses, and that was their job. They really didn't, like, I don't know that they truly laid out a city like a city. They just laid
Wasn't
them
supposed
out
to be a
front.
city.
Well,
When general
correct. Part
development
of
did that, it was not designed to be a city. It was
correct.
supposed to be a retirement community where people came during the winter months and then they went home. And eventually people decided to stay. And eventually people moved in and made it their home instead of a retirement home, made it a year-round home and raised. It was never even intended to have families here. The park near our house had shuffleboard courts, okay, where everybody brought in their own shuffleboard equipment. And so, that it was a retirement area. It was never designed to be what we have it today. Never. It didn't start becoming that until people started staying here, until people started
In the state.
living
How
here.
about in the state? You can blame me.
Well,
I moved here. And the funny thing is we moved down, and Northport wasn't even like on our radar. Northport ended up being on our radar because it was factual then, and it's not so much today, but it was for a long time. Northport was the affordable housing for everything else, and
it
we've
was.
yeah, and we're not that anymore. We're struggling with that at this point because we were that for so long, and we've kind of transitioned away from that, and I think with good reason, and not maybe some good, the bad, the ugly again, all mixed in. I think we could talk about the good and bad, the ugly on almost every topic, but I think you almost have to embrace some of this stuff like you guys have, and realize that some decisions have to be made for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Whether it's I talk to all of you enough that I feel like I can say this. You all don't get to vote like your personal idea of what you want to do as a citizen. Everyone has to look at this through the lens of the city, and your background before this, I don't even know how I would handle it, if I had to sit down and dissect all of the strategies that went in. I know it's a challenge for all of you, because I know you well enough that you have your idea, but you're not willing to interject the Debbie idea concept for the city. That would be what Debbie wanted, not what the city needs. And I think everybody does that. I do you look at it that way?
I think each one of us commissioners brings something different and unique to the table. Absolutely. I mean, the pool is one of my most favorite projects that I ever had the ability to work on. And seriously, John, I mean, look at 6 or 7 years ago, the hell that
I know.
that accompanied the conversation of the pool. Look at it. Really, really and truly look at that huge decision that we had to make about the pool. We had an old aging infrastructure of the old Dallas White Northport pool that was failing and failing rapidly, and we knew that we had to shut it down. That created huge backlash. We knew we had to put something else in its place. And there was a conversation about just a 50-meter pool. Is it going to be a pool with slides? And then we decided to make it something bigger and better to attract more people to our city. And that's how this pool was born. And you want to talk about backlash? There was a lot of it.
No, there still is.
And nowadays, the people that live here today cannot imagine the city not having that pool.
Well, and here again, I say this because the education that's come out through what the city has done with the social media side of things, with the staff, getting it out through this broadcasting capability is that.
No, it did not.
What's that?
Bill's saying no, it did not. No, it did not. But that's a different conversation for a different day.
No,
that was one of the biggest misconceptions. It did not.
It didn't. How about that's misinformation?
No, I'm not going to call it misinformation because that's the information he believes based on what he knows. I have the documents and I know that's not accurate.
Well, label it the way you want. It's not factual. How about that? And Chuck, get with Debbie and she'll give you the documents or give you a copy of them and show it to you. But I'm glad you answered that question because I hadn't put that up yet. You were just a tad bit ahead of me on posting that up. But I agree with you on the pool side of things because even through this, when we talk about the pools, people still post how negatively the pool is. And at this point, and it's sort of like you built a pool and the naysayers don't want to get on board with the pool anymore because they want to complain and moan and groan about the pool. And that's okay. But we're not going to backfill it. We're not going to not have it. We have to kind of embrace it. And we have to, as a city, support what it does because the one facet by itself that impresses me the most is that every second grader goes through a water safety class put on by that pool. And child deaths are an extreme importance to a city that has 80 miles of canals. It's just not, and that's really, I think, a federal, if I'm not mistaken, it's either a state or a federal or a funded program that we embrace and we forge ahead with at that location. And it's all because you guys had the foresight to fight through all the chaos and get it done. And I don't know that everybody knows what value that actually brings to the citizenry. Parks and Rec, we can talk about them in depth, but I'm glad you guys fought through that. I know what the old pool was like. I know how bad it was. I know that it had to be done. And
but that's my point. That's my point, John, is that every commission has some big issue that they have to work through. It's not always popular and it's not always going to be embraced by all of the citizens, but these are some of the hard decisions that every commission has had to make. But all you're doing is changing the issue. Change the issue depending on what that commission had to do and what that commission had to focus on in the past. This commission did not have to deal with the pool. The previous commissions dealt with the pool. And actually, the commission changes every 2 years.
Right.
So it's not Debbie's commission. It's every 2 years, the commission changes. And those needs and those infrastructure needs, those priorities change all the time. And yes, just so Chuck doesn't think I'm ignoring the question, Chuck, we will have to get offline about that answer, because that answer is not just the pool that loses money every single year. So does the parks that everybody enjoys. So does the baseball fields, the soccer fields, the multi-purpose fields, the Morgan Center, the Mullen Center. Those all lose money every single year. And I cannot imagine for the life of me why people would want the pool closed, but want all of those other things open. This is what cities do. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, and I apologize, John. This is your show. I will.
No, it's your
John,
moment.
Chuck, get with me offline regarding that. Okay.
I'm okay with that answer, because the truth is, all of these things that you're talking about, they're all check marks for all the things that lose money in our city. But
that's what government does.
They're all essential for why people are here. People are here because of Parks and Recs. They're here because we're looking at the average age in our city is 48 years old, for the love of Pete. We literally are the youngest city in our county. And we're supposed to ignore the fact that we have one of the best Parks and Rec systems. Well, I think we have one of the best in the county, let alone the state. But we have that pride in community. We have all those things. And I know daggone well that Chuck is all over not wanting to shut the parks down. So if you take that stance with one, then you have to collectively.
You have to take it with all of them, and that's not right.
Yeah. And you know,
government is not in business to make money, and government does the things that most private sectors don't want to touch. I don't know of too many private sectors that will open up a passive park, because there's no way to make money in a passive park, because most people aren't going to pay to go to a passive park. All right. They will pay to go to a Sky Zone, but that's not a passive park, because they're getting something in exchange. So a Sky Zone is very similar to the aquatic center.
And my granddaughters would let me pay for a Sky Zone pass all day, every day.
But most private sectors do not build roads. They do not pay to put roads in. That's what government does. You know, I mean, yeah, there are some exceptions. When you have a big, huge subdivision that wants to develop a subdivision, then they have to put those roads in. But that's more for private use. It's not like a US 41 or an I-75 or a Price Boulevard or a Sumter. So, you know, government has its role. And if anything that I can say is that we have to focus on government's role. The role of government. That will help get this infrastructure taken care of. This will help keep our taxes down. The role of government, instead of going willy-nilly to all these other things that government thinks they have to do because they're the government. But that's probably more at the state and federal level than local level.
And you know, the funny thing with this show is early voting is already started. So all you working class that are out there that don't think your vote matters for a lot of different reasons. Your vote matters.
Absolutely.
You should take responsibility for voting, first off. Second off, and I've said this for 7 years, go learn how to vote and then figure out what you're voting for. But get yourself in the practice of voting, because a lot of people in our country don't vote at all. And they think their vote doesn't count. And everybody's vote counts. Everybody's voice should be heard. And that is always the first question I have is, did you vote? Because if you vote, I'm good with talking to you. If you didn't vote, you didn't care enough to vote. You shouldn't care enough to bitch. So go vote, do your due diligence, get yourself in position. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I just want you to vote. And then we'll talk. How about that? That's my pitch on voting.
Early voting starts today, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
Chuck had another question about
it's posted right now.
Well, Chuck, I think you know that answer along with many others. I have been standing on an island all by myself about notifying the property owners that their property was being rezoned. I had a meeting in March where I put on an agenda item to actually notify the property owners that their property was being rezoned, and that failed. That never got voted on. There was no second to my motions. I have continuously advocated since the learning of this rezoning that these property owners must be notified. And I understand state statute says that they have to be notified in the newspaper, but I feel like a broken record. We did do that. We did follow state statute, but there is a number 9 in that state statute that clearly says that the state statute is a minimum. We could have notified those property owners, but it was a commission's decision not to. And I was the only commissioner that wanted that notification.
And I'm going to say what I said on my show during one of these too, is that I'm not going to disagree with you. I know that we followed state statute, and I'm okay with that. I get what you're saying, and I'm okay with that side of it if it would have happened. But I also think that there's some personal responsibility from the landowners to not be absentee owners like they've been for decades in our city. They need to be involved. My sister-in-law has a tree leaning over her house right now because people don't go check on their properties. They're not paying attention to what's happening. And there is personal responsibility that comes from the citizens to, like, we own, the Uncle Dan owns property here in Florida, and things are changing where he's at. But because we're staying in the know, we see those things, and we're on top of that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying there's another layer to it, and the business, the landowners, they have to take responsibility too.
Okay. And I don't disagree with that. And this is why I love about this show, is because there is a debate. You and I get to debate it, because the previous shows that I have seen before focused on how the city defended themselves in doing, and the action of the commission about not notifying the residents and the property owners. And I don't disagree. The property owners do have a responsibility.
Sure.
But at the same time, these property owners, yes, most of them are out of state, but I know many that are in state that live in our city. And I will never apologize for believing that our city is above the minimum. We are above the minimum requirement. And it is a slap in the face that our citizens were not notified of their property being rezoned. But just a couple weeks ago, we all got this wonderful postcard in the mail telling us to be in the know, from commission meetings to city events to programs to the upcoming November 5th election. Get your news directly from the city of Northport. So we can send this out, this piece of fluff, but we can't notify the property owners. That is, we're above the minimum. And if we want to start acting like a city, and we want to have citizens who trust us, and we want to have citizens who are involved without being name called, then we need to start acting like it. Because I'm sorry, John, you cannot convince me that this postcard is a million times more important than notifying property owners that their property is being rezoned. And they don't know that they cannot build a home on a lot of those properties. But it was a commission's decision. So yes, I have to live with that. But at the same time, I also have a duty and a responsibility to call out unconscionable actions that just scream of, this isn't right. If it's not right, it's not right.
So
but the decision was made, and it's over with.
I'm not going to disagree with you on it. And the factual basis to this is, I hope that you're that much upset with the citizens who didn't give a shit about their property to begin with. They haven't stayed in the know. They haven't done these things. They've been absentee for a long time, and we both know that. And the reason that we're
No, I
really,
don't know that.
yeah, you do, because we have, where is the march on City Hall? Where is that overreaction that there isn't yet? There isn't one. There isn't hundreds of thousands of people contacting the city over these things. They're not doing it. That's how we gauge on how the citizenry. Yes, while I think you're valid in what you're saying, I'm not even disputing it. But there's two sides to this that have to
I
they
do
have
not
to take
disagree. There are two
responsibility.
sides.
And while you can to make the stance about the city and go at the city over it, you should be the same person that looks at the citizens right now and says, if you own the lots and you haven't been paying attention, shame on you too. Because it is your, if I owned a lot, if I seriously, if you people have to take responsibility for some of these things.
Well, then why are we sending out this postcard? To advise people of the website to be able to find out about commission meetings and city events. So if you're going to apply that logic, John, to notifying about rezoning property, you have to apply the same logic to this fluffy piece of postcard.
Well, I don't know the logic behind that flyer, because
I don't either.
I haven't asked that question, but the logic that I deem from it, it doesn't say rezoning. Get your rezoning information here. What it says is get your butt in gear and get in the know, because we don't have, and you are not a commissioner that has the voice of everybody. You don't.
I've never. Whoa, hold up.
No,
hold up.
I'm not
I've
saying
never ever claimed that I am the commissioner of being in the know or anything like that.
No. What
I've
I'm
never
saying to
claimed
you,
that.
what I'm saying to you is, collectively, we are not, our citizens are not connected. They're not. So let's not send that
Why?
card.
Why?
Well,
Let's explore that.
I
Why?
think the first step is sending that card to tell them they have the availability to do it. First off, that's one. You could take that stance and say, at least we're attempting to get that out. I don't know if that's what their goal was with it all, but at the same time, if you don't hold your town hall meetings, you're not doing the extra. Okay. Now you're doing the extra and you're still attracting the same 25 people.
No, I've had a lot of new people at my town.
You're not sitting at a percentage that what I'm saying to you is where is the impact that everybody keeps yelling about? They're yelling, oh my God. Well, there is no fire. Do you know why I know there's no fire? There's no fire at City Hall. There's not a march. There's not a petition. There's nothing. I know that you see that. I know you understand what I'm saying to you, and it's not personal. It's the same thing we've battled since we've been here. People are not connected. They're not involved. They let others do things and they just go through their motions. And there are a select group of people that stay in the know, that stay part of it, stay part of the fabric. Unfortunately, we are both that. And I'm not saying I'm not frustrated. I'm literally frustrated because I watch all these things and I watch what happens in our town, and I know how great our town is. And I know how
great our city's amazing. I love our city.
Yes. So all these things being said,
frustrating? We share a frustration, John. We share a frustration because while the city wants the residents to get the news directly from the city, there are two sides to everything. Sure. And only hearing from the city is not always telling the whole story. And when citizens start to talk about the whole story and the other side of the story, or, hey, what about this? Or, hey, did you think about this? Or, hey, you need to take a pause here and really evaluate the decisions that are being made and think about what is the unwritten message, what is the underlining things that are happening, and hear what the citizens are saying and actually go, whoa, yeah, maybe this wasn't a good idea.
Well, maybe
Or
maybe
instead of
maybe it was a great idea.
Timing sucked. I'll be blunt.
Well, you can be blunt, but I'm not arguing timing. But the fact that they're telling people, they're at least telling them to get involved. They're asking them to get involved. They're showing them ways how to get involved. You aren't any different with your town hall meetings.
No,
You're
I'm
doing
not.
the same thing. But I've been to the town hall meetings. I've been I know that they're valuable. I know that there's parts of it that are truthful and parts of it that I have to swim through, because even even in those scenarios, there are a lot of people that are agitated, that just because their voices are heard, that doesn't make them factual either. So we haven't had a city that had a voice collectively. We have a city that's getting a voice out. We while we had commissioners who were out and about, our city hall never had a voice out. We don't have media. We have the start of media now in the radio station that is trying to get things started and trying to do those things. And the emergency broadcasting network for the city of Northport. I know you didn't get to vote for that. Would you have voted yes for that if you had your vote?
I had to abstain, so I'm not going to answer any of that.
Well, that's a no. So you don't have to abstain. The truth is that was the right thing to do for the city for all the right reasons. And I know you abstain. You can abstain with that vote, but I already know that people you're connected with didn't want that. I already took those calls. I already did all that. My expectation was the one that you took. That's the harmful part for me, is that
Well, hold on. So WKDW had 2 agreements before the commission. Am I hearing you upset that I abstained?
I'm upset because you didn't answer the question again. Because the
What
vote,
question?
how would you have voted? Would you have voted for it or against it?
I would have absolutely voted for it. How do you know what I would have done or wouldn't have done, and what my
I
friends
just
do,
asked
and
that
what my
question.
older citizens do?
I just asked the
John, you
question.
are making some serious assumptions that are just
I didn't. I
grossly
just asked
unfair.
you the question, and you said I'm going to abstain again. I abstained from the vote.
Well, I
That's what
abstained,
triggered
and
me.
then I realized it's over and done with, so I can answer it.
Yeah. So all right. So all these things being said, those are when people collectively take a stance.
Well, you assumed something, John. That's not fair to assume.
No. I
About
went based
me.
off of the answer that you just gave. So when you gave the answer, I abstained. I thought you were
I
doing it
did.
again.
I abstained.
I understand that. I already said that. So I got the answer. So I really think that collectively we are not different. I have a lot of frustrations with a lot of things that have come and gone, and I never share them like intensely on this show. And now I got a question at me. How about that?
Go for it. Boy, this is not exactly how I expected this show to go today, John. I'm sorry. But I guess that's.
Well, that's a nice assumption on your behalf. So, you know, I can understand a lot of your frustration, and I know that you can understand mine
I
because
think we have a very shared frustration about a lot of things that are happening, and I get defensive when people call out my friends. I get defensive when
I
people
can call
call.
out several of them right now on the air if you'd like, because
No,
they
I
know
don't.
their
No,
place.
it's not necessary.
That I
But
can do it
I
though.
would, I would never do that to you or your friends, who I would assume are your
Sure.
friends. I would never do that. I would never. I have watched your show and many guest speakers call out citizens, residents of the city, and and not in very nice ways. And if you want to know why some people just don't get involved with government, is because it's ugly. It's become ugly. And I don't know why. And I'm not even just talking federal or state. It's gotten ugly here. And I don't know why. There are two sides to every story, but I'm sorry, the other side gets dismissed and as misinformation, or those people, and I've heard you say it even today, the naysayers. My God, these are people that you want to view your show, that you want to be involved in this city, that you want to participate. But every time they do, and they seem to really want to share a different perspective, it is met with in I, it's met with animosity. It's met with antagonistically, and I don't understand that. And I really and truly was hoping that my last show with you was not going to be anything like this. And I apologize to the viewers, because this is not, I did not want to get on my high horse. I did not want to bring up some of the subjects that were brought up, but they were. So I had to speak to them, because I am not going to shy away from the tough answers. And this is what I do at my town halls. This is
I
what
know, and
I
you're
do.
wrong at your town halls at some points too. And you know that because you know that I stood in the back of the room and I said, you need to make them stop. You allow them to attack staff, you allow them to do these things.
No, I do not.
Yes, you did. You can't take it back. And I know it happened. I was there. I my animosity for a lot of this stuff is your greatness and what you've brought has also been sabotaged by the focal group that seems to be a real point of your direction. And that's the frustrating part for me, is that I watch you. I know that you have a heart. I know that you have a a big heart for this city. I know what you have done. I know how you've changed and how you've watched you grow. Holy crap. Uh, you've gone from the non-commissioner to what you are now. And I want to believe that you want to go on to the county. I I do. I want to believe that you want to do that. I'm frustrated because I'm watching and I'm like, while there's good and the bad and the ugly that come with everything, where is the building of the coalition at? Where is the team effort where it's not attack? And yeah, you can take the high horse on this show and you can apologize for how the show went, but the fact that I stayed quiet and let you do that doesn't mean that you're correct. It's that some of these questions have to be asked and you're not always right. Just like other people are not always right. And you know, the people that tell me I have to call people out, they don't like it when I call them out. They don't like that. And the frustrating part for me is that everything I do, there's no payday for me at all. There's no check. There's nothing. This is all give back to the community. And that's what I want the citizens to see, is that you guys do so much. And it is not a part-time job. It is underpaid, undervalued. You give a lot of your time and energy. And I'm not talking about just you. I'm talking about all the past commissioners who sacrificed a lot of things and did a lot of good. The Vanessas, the Dick Lockharts. I watch all those people walk through this town, and the Barbaras of the world. The just there's so many of them that all of their decisions weren't wrong. You're right. They were at the time. I'm just tired of you guys looking at it's right or wrong. I think collectively you guys have done a hell of a job. And you fought through all kinds of things, that you fought through the de-annexation bullshit and all of those things that happened. And it's just nuts to me that the animosity is out there. It's not me who's picking a side. They picked your side. I didn't pick anybody's side.
Nobody picked what side are you talking about?
They certainly picked your side, but and you know what I'm saying. But
Don, hold up. Every vote I made,
it's not
I decided that.
It's not your. It has nothing to do with that. So
I don't even know then what you're talking about, because
who's this person here? Edgar.
No idea. No idea.
Chuck, you went too far backwards for me, and probably for Debbie too. I'm not sure who that was.
But I do remember when commissioners were the director of the departments.
Well, so that must have been back in the day when Mike Morales said, here's the thing. We used to call the police department, and you used to have to get dressed to make a call.
No, back in the day, the commissioners were in charge of departments. They were department heads. There was the Parks and Rec department head. There was the roads department head. There was utilities department heads. That they were the elected officials.
Back in the day of Marge, he said.
Well, that explains how far back.
That's
because I came in just about the time that. So my grandparents lived here since '77, so I'm very familiar with Northport. I didn't obviously follow government. I was barely a teenager at that point. But Marge General was the mayor, and for a long time, and that's just how things were run. And then they got a city manager. The voters approved a city manager form of government, and then the city manager became the head of operations of the city, removing I believe the commissioners being the department heads. Those are details that I can't speak about 100%.
That's back before me, because I would like to think I knew who Marge was, but I don't even know if I know that name.
Yeah, I do know who she was, because I was living in this general area at that time.
So,
but yeah, John, just to real quick get back to something,
sure.
I would really like to extend an invitation to you to talk offline about the problem you and I seem to have on this show and off this show. So if you would like, I would love to buy you a cup of coffee and talk offline about it.
Sure.
Because I think that was a lot of this underlining of what today's conversation was. I will defend when I have to defend. Absolutely, 1,000,000%. I will not sit back and be quiet.
I will do the same, and I think that's what is going on, and and it's not you directly, but it's a lot of people that you've surrounded yourself with, and
my friends. Friends.
No, you may think that, but they are. I've been threatened with lawsuits. I've been threatened by all kinds of things by your friends for not doing anything wrong. So that's the phone calls I get that I don't tell you about from your friends. But I'm not
Yeah.
going to. I'm not going to get into.
And I
this.
can say the same about some of yours. So that's okay. We'll have
That-
this conversation offline.
Sure. And I'm glad you had 8 years. I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that you were there for the citizens. I don't agree with the ones that say you're the only one that were there for them, and I know that collectively you don't now either. And that's that. I mean, that is what that Debbie. It's all over Facebook. It's not. It's not a.
But John, you know, I've heard for probably the past 18 months, 2 years or so, that Commissioner McDowell is the only one to answer the emails, to get back to me, to do this, to do that, to do that, to do this. And initially when I heard that, it was like, wow, thanks for the kudos. And then I got really sad and I got really miffed. I don't know what other word to use, because it's like, why are they saying I am the only one to answer an email? Why am I the only one to respond to a phone call or to respond on Facebook? I don't have those answers. So when citizens say I am the only one, I have to wonder then, why don't the others? And I say that nicely because I honestly don't know what they do, because just like they don't know what I have done as a commissioner. I just recently learned that Commissioner Stokes is hosting those town halls. He was advertising it on Facebook, and I'm like, yes, that's fantastic. That's great. But obviously, I don't know when another commissioner answers an email, because it's subject to sunshine, and I have rules that I have to follow. But I did hear a commissioner say, well, why should we? McDowell's going to. That's not healthy. That's not good.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I don't agree with that. I think that every email that goes out has a right to a response from each individual. I agree with you on that. Do I know whether that's happening or not? No. Are the things that are in our community in bad shape? I think they're getting better. I think you had a lot to do with that, with doing the town halls and collectively doing that. I think that overall it's going to get better. I think Northport Forward has been a huge asset for getting information out and trying to connect the citizens to the city. And I think there needs to be more of that. I thought the actual debates this year, actually, without the hurricanes being involved, I think there would have been more. I know there would have been something done to me, and it just ate my time up. Two different hurricanes, so I was trying to put something together, but I think collectively, I think the voice of the citizens to the citizens is getting stronger, and I know that to be the truth, is because it couldn't have gotten worse. And the amount of energy that's coming out from City Hall and you and Phil and others who are pushing social media content out, I think we finally are holding our own as a city to represent and push content and get that information out to others. And can it be better? Sure. Can we pick on the timing of everything? Certainly. But I without knowing, and you didn't ask and I didn't ask, that flyer, I don't know what it was designed for. I don't know why it was directed. I know that people are they again, I say this repeatedly. Our citizens need to start taking responsibility too. We're not collectively doing that, because we collectively don't vote at an all-time high. We collectively don't do that either. So that's for the president. We don't do that. and everything trickles down to local, and you know that local
No.
makes all the difference in the world to everybody. And where I could say you get an A for what you did, I can say you got an F at the same time. It's because it's not enough. But what I don't even know the answer to enough, because everybody's doing all they can to do it. And it's like you said, the name calling and all that stuff. I don't care about the pot shots at my name. I do take great offense to when somebody says I'm the boy of the city. I'm not. I just happen to be the boy of the city. So I'm
I don't even know what that means.
well.
We'll have that conversation.
That's an independent conversation with somebody I had, and I want people to know that the time I give to do all these things is no different than the time that you guys put in. You guys put, how many hours a week do you put in? Seriously, if you were to add up your hours to what you did per week for the city, is it more than 20?
Yeah, John, if I answer that question, I don't want to disparage anybody else, because this is what is so cool about being a commissioner. I do what I feel is necessary to be the best commissioner Debbie McDowell can possibly be.
Sure. But you're not a part-time commissioner.
I can be if I want to.
But you're not.
I don't even, but that's my choice.
I get it.
That's what is so amazing about being a commissioner. It is my choice what I want to invest. It is mine and mine alone. It is not making me on a higher level or anybody on a lower level. There are commissioners, I am sure, before me that have put in far more time than I did. And there are far more commissioners that have put in less time than I have.
Sure.
This is what being a commissioner is. You do what you feel is appropriate for your level of commissionship. I'm making up a word. Okay. It's not better and it's not worse. It is just something that I personally have decided to do to be the best commissioner that I could possibly be. That is not by any means saying anybody is a worse commissioner. That is not saying that. I am just saying that I have a role to answer to myself, to look in the mirror every morning. And I said, I will make sure that when I vote, I can look myself in that mirror. That when I answer an email, I can look at myself in the mirror. When I answer a Facebook post, I answer to myself, because I ultimately answer to my citizens. And yes, they are my citizens because I'm speaking. I'm the one that's speaking. And I know there's people that hate it when I say my citizens, but I'm the one that's speaking, so they are my citizens. All right. And I just do the best job that I possibly can. Have I done a fantastic job? In some areas, absolutely. In other areas, hell no. You know, I don't have soft words. I don't finesse words. I don't do that. It's not me. I have to be true to me, whether I'm on day 1 or on day 8 year. I have to be true to me. And I have to know that what I voted for is the reason I voted for that, or I voted against that. And I have to be able to explain.
Is there anything you would have changed?
Is there anything I would have changed? Yeah, there's a couple of them, and there's quite a few of them that I am damn proud of standing by myself with my 4-1 votes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But there are quite a few that I wish maybe I shouldn't have voted that way, but I did. And at the time it was the right vote.
See, ironically, I think that if we went back and we asked every commissioner post their time, I don't think anybody would give a different response.
What do you mean?
I think they would give the same response you gave. And they should. That's like the real answer. It's we don't have 5 perfect commissioners. We don't
No,
have one perfect commissioner. We don't have
no.
perfect anyone. We have a lot of people trying to do the greatest for the greater good of our community. And I think you're in that. I think you're in that mix, whether you vote yes or no, yay or nay. I think you're still in that mix because you're an elected official who has a vote. And I, I don't know what I would do if I was on the end of 4-1. I don't know my reaction. Never been there. So it's
You know,
hard for me to look at it and judge that because you have more insight on a lot of the reasons that you're going with a 4-1 vote. And I also think that a lot of the citizens that need to pay attention and haven't paid attention should pay attention to stuff like that. Whether you're on the end of the 4-1 vote or involved in the 4-1 vote and there's someone else saying no, I think collectively we have a disconnection to our citizens. And that's the one thing I still think we're fighting for every day is connection.
I don't think it's new, John.
It's not new.
It's not new.
It's old.
I
It's
mean,
an old problem.
when I moved here over 30 years ago, I was not involved with government. I remember going to my first commission meeting, which was over on Northport Boulevard at the old city hall at the location where the new fire station is. And I remember going in, I remember making public comment, and it was about recycling. And I remember those commissioners laughing at me at my comment. And you want to know something?
Sorry.
I don't think I stepped into City Hall until the Dollar General, because it really played on my mind that elected officials and staff would sit there and laugh at a citizen. And that was probably, I don't know, 20 years ago.
It was
20 years ago.
What was the fight over Dollar General? Because we have the Dollar General. It's still there.
Right. That's not the first time I came into City Hall. I was telling you the first time I came into City Hall was when.
Go ahead.
The first time I came into City Hall was when they were changing the recycling. And I made a public comment and I was laughed at.
About recycling.
And something about recycling. I don't remember all the specifics, and it's irrelevant. But I walked out of there with a complete understanding of how the government, local government, treats its citizens back then. And I'd never stepped foot again until the Dollar General that happened. And that's when I got re-involved with government. So, we say we want to have our citizens involved and we want to have our citizens participate, but all too often, even 20 years ago, this citizen was laughed at by elected and staff. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be a part of that. It's a respect thing, and with the Dollar General, we actually did get some changes made. Those changes are now moot because of the new ULDC, but it did help make some changes and changed my mind about how government works. But first impressions are lasting impressions, and it took a long time for me. It took a lot of guts for me to go back into City Hall with that idea over my head of how I was first treated. I want to be involved with the citizens participating in government. That had been my mainstay of my entire tenure, was to try and get people to understand and be a part of government.
So I'm going to go back to the card for a second, just on a curious note, because we're both sitting here with lack of knowledge. Timing we can agree with, but overall, I look at anything our city does right now to reach out to the citizenry to get them to be involved should be embraced. It shouldn't be mocked. It shouldn't be.
Great word. It's a great word. The citizens should be embraced, not made fun of, not name called, not chastised. They should be embraced and educated. And if they don't understand, they have to be
I don't think
explained
collectively we have. So are you assuming that right now we have everyone at City Hall that's doing that?
No, I am not. No, don't go putting words in my mouth.
Oh, no, I'm asking a question.
No, but there are times where, yes, the citizens don't feel like they're being embraced. Absolutely.
All of them?
All of them.
All of them. I'm
like
wondering.
All of the citizens? I don't know. There's 95,000. Can I speak for 95?
I watched the Warm Oil Spring event, and the Robin, you told me not to talk about the referendum anymore. Holy crap.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please. What? Don't talk. What?
So go on. You were talking about Warm Oil Springs.
You know, I watched the Warm Oil Springs stuff, and I know collectively we had 100 people show up at City Hall for that, but they are there for one purpose, the Warm Oil Springs. But divided down, it was a split 100, because some of those people didn't live in our city, but do go to the park on a regular basis, and they're annual membership holders. And those are valuable because any dollars that are coming into Warm Oil Springs is a value to the city. Just like any dollars that come into the pool is we talk about the losses. And, if we looked at all these things as profitability factors, none of them exist. They don't, like, I don't care what city you go to. I don't know any cities that run parks that brag that they're profitable. They're not. They're expenditures, most of them.
Warm Oil Springs is turning a profit.
Not
it's the only park.
Not truthfully. So it's a skewed number. If you ran that like a business, it's not, because if you ran it like a business, like you and I would in the private industry, we would have to pay for it. It's because it's paid for through a different funding source. It's a government. So I'm the business side of it. It doesn't pay for itself, and it's bullshit to tell everybody it does, because through government, it's a factor. And while that's a great thing, and I support it, I don't want it to go away. I do want us to have a real conversation about it, but you can't compare a government balance sheet to a business balance sheet, because if you bought the business, like bought it outright, you'd have to incur the debt of purchase. And we don't count that in the budget. We don't count that anywhere in there. That's not a factor. And so it's not a business to me. It's a budgetary item because it's part of the city's budget. It's not the city isn't a business. It's not set up that way. We didn't have to pay that loan back. Where if you or I bought the business called Warm Oil Springs, we'd have to pay it back. So that's why I don't like the conversation, because it's not a really balanced conversation. Because I want the park. I don't want it to go away. I also understand that it doesn't make it makes money on the city balance books, and that's okay. But let's say it like that. It doesn't make money like a business does. It would be broke right now. And that's the reality of it all. And I think that's the factor that we need to talk about, is that the city budgets aren't the same as everyday balanced budgets for the working class that are out here running their business. They're not the same. So,
I see a couple questions about the referendum. There's a couple of citizens that are asking about pros and cons and my take on the referendum. Do you want to go there, John?
Sure.
So pros and cons according to Debbie, because that's all I get to do. And I know the city has put out a ton of information, a ton. It's out there. Okay. But there are still people that don't understand it. I get phone calls. I get stopped at the grocery store that, hey, can you explain to me the referendum? I also get then the follow-up question. Usually it starts, hey, you know, this referendum thing, should I be voting for it or should I be voting against it? And I go, well, you ain't getting that answer from me, because I firmly believe that every citizen has the responsibility to do their homework and hear both sides of the referendum. So the referendum, the 75 words is what is all that can go on the ballot. That is by state law. So there is, like, I think it's 5 pages of charter language that the new charter will entail. Okay. So on the pros, yes, this will give the city the opportunity to be able to issue debt for emergencies, declared emergencies for recovery. Okay. And I'm really, really keeping it simple. Okay. Yes, the city would be allowed to issue debt without voter authority up to $15 million for non-emergency projects. All right. This is what's been put out. This is the crux of this whole entire voter referendum. So the cons are, you're voting for both. You're voting for the emergency ability and you're voting for non-emergency ability. And I remember during second reading, I went, my God, if I had only thought of this sooner, we could have separated it and made it 2 different referendums, one for emergencies and another referendum for the $15 million max. I sincerely wish we had 2 different referendums, because I firmly believe the voters of this city would wholeheartedly agree with the emergency borrowing authority. Where the question comes in is that $15 million of giving the city authority for non-emergency projects. We as a city have always had the ability to put out to vote a referendum to issue debt. For whatever reason, can't make my crystal ball speak. We have only done that on less than a handful of times, right? We can still do that and keep the voice for the residents to be able to have that voting authority for the non-emergency projects. All right. The last 2, the road bond, it passed it because the voters understood the importance of that road bond. It passed with Price Boulevard because the voters understood the importance of that Price Boulevard bonding authority. I cannot for the life of me think of a time when, if it's for like water control structures or for a bridge, any of that kind of infrastructure where the citizens may say, not too sure. I think they would absolutely go, yes, we need those water control structures. Yes, we need those bridges. Yes, we need whatever infrastructure that needs to be replaced or repaired. So I do agree that the voters would say yes to something like that. But when you say non-emergency projects up to and including, that kind of opens it up. And I'm not saying anybody on this board or this staff would not use that $15 million authority prudently, but this is a decision that will carry forward forever. I can see why the citizens are concerned about giving up that authority to just allow the commission or staff to kind of weigh those ins and outs of it. So ultimately, it's going to be their decision. Do they want to lose their voice, or do they want to allow the city to have that authority? That's the bottom line. Yes, there is something in there about the debt management project, the debt management policy. That is also a little bit of a concern, and we're going to be having that conversation tomorrow with my fellow commissioners for the first reading of that debt management policy. So we will see what that's going to turn out, but understand that the debt management policy, those provisions in that policy, and I even said this during the workshop, I would have liked to have seen some of those provisions that are in that debt management policy carried forward to the charter referendum to give the citizens a little bit more teeth, guardrails, whatever you want to call them, guardrails, I think is the term, for what the city can and cannot do, because policies can change. Policies can change. 2 readings done. So I hope that I kind of answered the questions as far as pros and cons. The bottom line is, do the voters want to give up their authority to be able to issue debt for emergency or non-emergency projects up to $15 million? It's either a yes or no, because they are together. In my opinion, they should have been separated, but there just wasn't enough time. And I wish we could have gotten a little bit more time to be able to do it 2 separate referendums, or thought of it sooner. But that's where.
Go ahead.
That's my pros and cons take on it. And I am not telling anybody how to vote. They have to decide.
We've got, we've got a long time to actually address some of these things, and we talked about the past, and I don't know that we were, I don't know that we were even I know we weren't talking this way when there was 25,000 people here. These conversations we're having today are new to our community. They're not old conversations. These aren't, I'm going to take this off the shelf, polish it off, and get this one done. This wasn't even a conversation.
I think Hurricane Ian made it a conversation, and that's what started the whole conversation, was Hurricane Ian, because we weren't able to be able to take advantage of some of the debt that was the debt instruments that were available to us as a city, because we didn't have that authority. And that's what the initial conversation was strictly for emergency powers for being able to issue debt. And then it morphed into this non-emergency. And then it morphed to no cap. And I warned my fellow commissioners. I said, guys, you put no cap on there, it's going to fail. It's going to fail miserably, and it'll be done and over with. You can't take away that authority without putting something in place. And so my fellow commissioners agreed. And I remember the conversation. I was on the low end. I wanted like a 7 million. Other commissioners wanted like a 28 million. So we found a little bit of a compromise, and that's where it settled on, in that 15 million.
Some of these things that we should have been doing as a city would have saved us money if we'd have had some of these things in place back then. I think Price Boulevard would have been done. I also believe that Price Boulevard would have had to be redone, because
you want to know something? Back when the commission, I think it was in 2017, I'd have to go back and check my notes. The commission, when we were talking about Price Boulevard, and we finally decided on what Price Boulevard would look like, the 2 lanes in each direction with the center turn lane, because there were quite a few different reiterations of that concept of what Price Boulevard would look like. We said, okay, moving forward, it's 2 lanes each direction and a center turn lane, and bring back funding options on how we are going to pay for Price Boulevard. For whatever reason, that conversation never took place. Never took place.
And Chuck says that he has these are old conversations.
I would love to see that, Chuck.
This
is where history is a wonderful teacher. Thank you, Chuck.
Because that to me, as long as I've been here, and as many commissioners I've talked to, nobody's ever talked like this. Nobody's ever had these conversations that in the circle. And I can tell by your reaction. I don't think you had these prior to this either, or knew that they were happening. But that the problems don't. That's not to say that it didn't happen. Our communications out of City Hall, gosh, back 25 years ago, was that there was no social media, so there was nothing. If there wasn't, I dare say I don't even know that we put an email blast or a newsletter out that wasn't, 10.
I do remember getting a newsletter for a very brief amount of time, but I think back in the day, before social media, before technology, before emails and all that kind of stuff, people got their news the old-fashioned way, and that was through the media, through print, through the newspaper, and right, wrong, or indifferent, that's where it came from. But
and that's changed.
People actually read the newspaper, and that's where the news came from. And I read the newspaper religiously. I still do. It's an online version. But they also did more of investigative kind of reporting where they gave the pros and the cons and stuff like that. So.
Well, and that was old school.
Yeah.
Nothing
wrong with old school sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, nothing wrong with it. But anybody else have any questions? David, I see you jumped in there. David Duvall, hi. Robin, thanks for being part. Chuck, thanks for being part. Sean, and I know that you don't think I was paying attention to Chuck, but I was. But other than that, what do you think that the city needs to work on first? What do you think has to happen within our city in 2025?
The first thing that they have to work on?
Yeah, what do you think is the most important thing?
Project-wise?
Whatever's a hot topic that you think as our city commissioner right now, if you were on, what would you think is the hot topic? What do you think is the most important thing that we should be paying attention to?
Our citizens.
Besides the citizens, what is the project? What is the next step for our city that needs to happen?
So we have some really big projects coming underway. I don't know if one project is more important than the other. I think they're equally important because it's kind of like splitting the baby, arm, legs kind of thing. Utilities needs a new building. That's already been approved by the commission to go forward with construction. Last time I drove over there, I haven't seen any signs of construction happening. So the utilities building, Price Boulevard, is out for construction bid right now. So that should be coming back probably within the next few months. And hopefully that bid is not going to come in astronomically higher than what we have funding for right now. The police station, absolutely. I have been an advocate for the police station. I know it's shocking to hear that I am advocating for the police station on the concept plan that was presented, because I want to learn from past mistakes. When they built the existing police station, they didn't plan for growth. Do we need to plan for growth that far out? Well, yeah. You know why? Because by the time that police station actually gets moved in, it's going to be 5 years from the planned growth.
Right. And we better plan add-ons. We better plan strategically how to do that.
People laugh when I say that, and they're like, "No, you guys are planning for 2035. We're in 2025. It's going to no." it's not going to be done by then. It's going to take a long time. We
I
just
gotta tell
now,
you, Shaggy and Michael and all of them graduated in '08, and I gotta tell you how fast all these years have gone. And
so
and you know that
yeah,
there
8 years goes by very fast.
it's been more than 8 for us. They graduated in '08.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, the past 8 years has
Oh
gone
yeah,
by
the
very
past 8
fast.
years, but I'm just looking at the years since our families have all kind of changed and moved on and went to bigger and better things and doing greatness out there in the world. And '08 to now, that's 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 pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
That 14 years or more. What is it? '08 to now. So that's
16.
16. I don't even want to say it, but 16 years. My granddaughter was 1 year old. Six, when things were happening, and John was still here. And in 8 years, look at what's changed with them, with our city. It's not going to take us. We are going to flip a switch. And I'm still in the line from the football team years back at Northport. Where I think, do you remember the T-shirt that said "Flip the Switch"? So they had that for their season. Let's flip the switch. Where we're going to flip it around. Well, we're going to flip the switch in this city faster than people are ready for. It's not going to slow down. It's going to grow. It's going to change.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you guys have made some of the decisions you made. I think some of them are right. I think some of them I have an issue with, but again, the things that I have an issue with, there's nobody marching City Hall. There's nobody saying anything, and I think that's also the citizens' responsibility to start stepping up and staying
I
in the.
do not disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. A quiet citizenry is going to get what they're going to get. And John, we don't just need the folks that are against something or have concerns about something coming out. We have to hear from the people that support things too. And you mentioned War Mineral Springs, where there was like maybe 100 people. How many people were sitting behind the screen? How many people don't come out? How many people are still very involved, but they don't, they're not vocal? We kept hearing about all the vocal minority, and it's said with such disdain. There is a vocal majority who do not speak out, and their voice is very loud. They go to the polls, they do vote, and they do know what's going on. They just don't want to get involved in the political nuances.
There's
The vocal majority is there. They just are
on
quiet.
some. I'll give you on some topics. I don't think we have a vocal majority on all the topics that people throw that language out there, because we don't have. We collectively can have this conversation frankly, because the truth is until we find a way to engage the citizenry where there's no fear of retribution, where there's no groups out there that are going to ban them, where their open dialogue is part of the conversation, where things are real, things are just part of the communication out. And I don't think one can throw a rock at one thing and then claim that they're doing another. And the reason I say that is I don't think we can throw a rock at the city for not communicating, and then I don't think we can throw a rock at them for communicating. So if you're damned if you do. Now the timing is suspect. I won't even question that, but I didn't take that. I didn't take that card the wrong way, because my mind wasn't tilted to take it that way. My mind was tilted probably the other way, going, thank God they're finally trying to get attached to the citizens. And that's how I looked at it. and I get why people are upset. I get why things are said. I get both sides. I can have that conversation. Should it have started 10 years ago? No, it should have started well before that. And I don't think we did an effective job back then. But I'm also not going to criticize them for doing it today, even if the timing was poor. At least the card did go out. I think not sending it out is even worse.
But everything is based on that individual's perspective. You just shared your perspective on
Sure.
how you thought that card was wonderful. And I shared my perspective on how the optics are of that card. All right. And you're not right. You're not wrong. I'm not right. And I'm not wrong. And that is the crux of how you get citizens involved. And you listening to the citizens, because each one of us, just like each one of us commissioners, we come from different perspectives. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. It's based on their perspective of where they're coming from and how they see it.
Did you enjoy working with this last commission?
Did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. There were parts of it that I absolutely abhorred. There's no two ways about it. There are parts of it I abhorred. But on the most part, this is the way I explained it to somebody. 95% of the time, I loved it. It's that 5% that I just, oh. Did they enjoy working with me? You asked me that question. So now let's turn it around. Did they enjoy working with me?
I'll ask them. I will.
Because I have my idea of what that answer will be.
It may be similar. It may be very similar to yours. I think overall,
that 5% was really, really loud. That 5% that I abhorred was very, very loud. And that 5% was the most challenging part of me being a commissioner. So 95%, I loved being a commissioner. 95% of it, I loved it. I am going to miss it horribly.
In saying that, the 5% that you went at it, would you have picked a different approach on some of those things?
No.
You would have stuck to what you did. You wouldn't have changed anything.
Why?
No, I'm because the truth is I'm all about outcomes, and while I'm not picking on any one thing strategically, there's not that at all in this conversation. What I'm asking is, if you had it to do all over again, is there something you could have done differently that may have been more impactful? To
have softer words? Okay, yeah, I'll give you that one. I could have had softer words.
Well, but sometimes even that one's not even
what needs to be said.
That's not actually the I guess it's not really the angle I was going at, because I think a lot of times when you're the lone wolf and you're out there and you go through it, I would also think that you would go through the other side and you would look at it and go, okay, so that didn't work. So next time I'm going to do this, or next time I'm going to try this, because I've got to try something that penetrates, that is like that game-changing moment. And it's not necessarily the words. It's not even changing the language that you had. It's the strategic design of it all. How is there anything there that, and I'm asking this because the truth is you're not running, you're not going to be there anymore. Is there, these are things that either the current commission can weigh in and think about, or new people that are coming in can use. Is there something that you could say that I've been through this, here's what I did, I stuck to my guns, but I maybe the next person has a different angle, or maybe my recommendation is, go here. I'm looking for that resource. What is that one thing that maybe you've analyzed on a self basis that you've looked at in some of these things and said, I could have done that different, and this is where I screwed up?
No, because John, I own what I did, and I don't shy away from that. I if you're looking for doing something differently, I can only control me. And there are times that maybe I didn't do such a good job of that. But at the same time, did they? I don't know. I can't speak for them. But, somebody asked me what was the best time of being a commissioner. When you're sitting up on that dais and you're making the sausage and you're making those really big decisions, what was the best time? And that is when we sat there and we worked through it and we found the compromise. That, to me, is one of the biggest lost arts for the past few years, is finding that compromise. As much as I tried, just recently we started to kind of come back to that compromise. When we were talking about the voter referendum, there was a lot of compromise with the language in that referendum. When we were talking about the debt management policy, when we had that workshop, there was a lot of compromise in there. That had been missing for a very long time, because it's not what Debbie wants. It's not what the other individual 4 commissioners want. It's a collective. Let's get it to be the best piece that it could possibly be, taking a little bit from everything. And at some point, you have this enormously magnificent issue that had been compromised and found and made a little bit for everybody. And that is something that we did at the beginning. We had no choice at the beginning because we only had 4 commissioners. I think it was for like 6 or 7 months. And there were some really, really big topics that were on the agendas. As a new commissioner, we had to find those compromises. And then it kind of got by the wayside, and compromise became this ugly word, and compromise became this, no, we don't compromise and we're not going to. I don't know when that shifted. I can't begin to, but if I had to give any advice to any future commission, is look for that compromise. And try and find that compromise in just about everything. But there are times where no matter how hard you try, there is no compromise. There are philosophical differences that cannot be compromised. And that's where I stood on my 4-to-1 votes on the majority of those votes that I did take.
Well, do you think that the 4-to-1 votes, they felt the same way you did?
Well, they voted against what I was.
It's not.
I don't know. I can't speak for them, John. I don't want them speaking.
The reason I say that is that we have. That's the ironic thing about a 4-1 vote, is the person that abstains or not abstains, that does the 4-1 vote and votes nay on it. I go back to the perspective thing. That's a perspective of that one individual. There's 5, and to me, there's not.
There's a lot of things that happen, and like with the ULDC, there's a lot of things that were behind the scenes, and not sunshine violation behind the scenes, but meetings with staff and emails that were exchanged, and trying to find compromise, and it wasn't there. And there were things in the ULDC I would never compromise on. Never. I couldn't. because I didn't feel it was the best thing for the city. Now, 4 commissioners thought it was, so now it's in law, and that is the end of it.
Right.
Do I support it? I know that it's hard for people to understand that this is the law, but I can still say I did not support that law. I didn't. I own it. Now, if somebody wants to hear my reasons why, I will be glad to share it with you, but it's all on the record. I shared it all on the record.
Yeah, and I get that. And I agree with Robin. Robin says one doesn't compromise their values and judgment, etc., for so-called majority opinions, and that's not what I was even asking. And I because you already kind of voted that way. And what I was asking is in the no process. Now that you've been through it, and you've been through it multiple times, it's not a new thing. It's multiple times that you've done that, and not.
So what's wrong with that? What's
Nothing,
wrong with that?
Nothing.
Okay, well then why are you making it? I'm feeling
No,
like you're making it sound like I was wrong.
I'm not applying any wrongness. What I'm asking you is, when you do it, when the next person who does it for the first time, if it's their first time in their career and they're going through this, I already know you don't compromise. You stick with the rule of thumb. Is there anything that collectively, now that you've been through it several times, not changing your vote, is there anything you would have done differently to influence or to speak differently to possibly influence someone to take their vote away? And
okay. So we'll just pick on the poor old ULDC, because that was one of the biggest contentious discussions that we kind of had. Okay. And I think you will agree. If they're not going to change my mind to vote yes, how in the hell would I get them to change their mind to vote no?
Well, I'm not saying to them. What I'm asking you again is that, is there something you, other than what you did, and it's not an attack, and this isn't it isn't you sticking to your guns. You did stick to your guns. You did all those things, and one can applaud it.
And I'm proud of it.
Yeah, and they're proud of their side. So I get
exactly.
And I will ask them the same thing, because where I come in and look at it is, I look at it and say, well, you've been through it. You were persuasive in the way you handled it, but would there have been anything else that you would have tried? Like, not saying that you're wrong, saying, the quarterback sneak didn't work, so I'm not going to run it again. I'm going to try something else. Strategies change. Things have to adapt. Is there something that you would have adapted to as a commissioner? Because I know you think about all this stuff. I know you lay these things out. They're not things that you're the most researched out there on topic. You do that stuff. You educate yourself on these things. So there isn't anything about that I'm going to pick on at all. And I'm not even picking on the no. Is there something as a commissioner that you've learned through all this process that you would have adjusted to, that you would have said, I went in it this way. All right, next time I'll try this. Did you do that? Or was it rigid? Was it just rigid? And it's okay if it was. There's no wrong answer. Like, there is no wrong answer to it. My mind is always thinking, how do I go at it differently?
So
more direct.
There were certain areas that were absolutely 1,000,000% rigid. Notifying the property owners, 1,000,000% rigid. Discussing with my fellow commissioners on some tweaks that could be made to the ULDC. I tried different tactics. I tried different things to try and, okay, I know they don't have the patience for this ULDC. They don't, they getting into the weeds is what I love to do. I recognize that it's painful for others, extremely painful for others. So yeah, I did try different tactics, but at the end of the day, it was for nothing. Because
It wasn't for anything. That's not the point. But I'm glad
it
that
was for nothing, because it still didn't matter, because there was
it did, because you tried, because you did do different tactics. You did think about it. You everything that I said that you did. You just
but
like
it didn't get any different result. It
and it may never, but not here again, one could say not doing anything is just as not changing, not adapting, not adjusting is almost worse than just repetitively doing the same thing. We can't all do the same thing and expect the same results. It's you did try new things, you did adapt, you looked at it differently, and that is a right answer. Just like I stayed rigid is a right answer. There's no wrong answer to it. But for anybody that's new coming in, you didn't ever go through this before you were a commissioner at this level. Like in your personal life, this isn't that you had other things, but what I'm saying is for collectively all the things that you've had to adapt to over 8 years, this is part of it. That 4-1 distinction is part of it. That handling of all those things, whether good, bad, or ugly, or in between, doesn't matter. New people that you're gonna talk to or maybe ask you a question, they're gonna go through it. They're all gonna go through it at some point. I would fully believe that they're going to be on a 4-1 vote at some point in their career. John Robin just told me she can't see any of the responses for questions. There are no responses in writing. I'm not writing anything, Chuck. So I'm not sure. I'm not. We're just talking in responses. But do you know what I'm asking? You know what I mean? The new people, like your history of who you are, like it's like the Jim Bluchers of the world, his history, and not seeing the questions. No, not seeing the questions. I don't know.
I see them.
I see them. We're seeing them differently than they are. So they may be coming. Some of these questions may be coming from different platforms that you don't see, Robin. So I have 6 different social medias streaming at the same time. So the Commissioner McDowell and I are both on StreamYard responses, I believe. Are you watching on the StreamYard, Debbie?
Am I? I don't know. I'm following whatever link you gave me. Heck,
Yeah. So you're watching. So you're seeing all
give
of.
me the link. I clicked on it.
Yep, you're seeing all the ones that are coming in from all over the place. So
talk about adjustments. Through my tenure, you got talk about adjustments. I mean, geez, when we first started, we already covered that there was very little use of social media, and how it's now exploded. And it's become, newspapers have become obsolete, and social media is the thing to do. But technology, my God, coming in and my lack of technology, holy cow. And now it's like, I feel like I'm a pro, but I'm still at the infancy, because the point of me becoming a pro, they change everything and I got to learn it all again.
I was at the EOC and I was adapting to my software during the hurricanes and trying to get content out. And I think I went through the Debbie McDowell of, oh my God, I got to get caught up really quick on this software stuff. And thank God I had Michael who helped me create a lot of stuff and get things going out there. And, the social media side of all of what we're trying to do at WKDW, and you guys at the city are grappling with. Even the commissioners, we still have realtors who don't like to use electronic signature. It's like, wait, that's not even current. That's old. That's in the past. So it's like, we talk about these things, and
It's the level of comfort each person
it
has.
is. And during COVID, you talked a little bit about COVID. Look how much changed in the COVID years
Yeah.
with the senior
I was the
base.
COVID mayor.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah.
I'm having to learn fast.
Look what changed during that time frame as far as the communications and how people didn't get their paper, and they switched over, and now they've got electronic newspapers. They still read it, but now they're reading it online. And our senior base had to play catch up like extremely fast. And I look at that, and I look at our city, and I put all those things together, and I'm like, we're speeding through infancy as a city like no other. And I waited and waited and waited for things. The Walmart popped open, and that was like the meet and greet place on Friday nights. You went to Walmart to see everybody, and it took you 3 hours to get your shopping done at Walmart. And then you finally had to decide, I'm not going to Walmart on Friday night because I can't waste 3 hours there anymore. And so that was like the big thing. And we have citizens that talk about the auto parts store and the mattresses. You guys don't bring those in, and citizens know that you commissioners, you're out there. I know that you're calling all the mattress stores and all the auto parts stores in the world and saying, please bring your businesses here. That isn't what you guys do. It's all based on rooftops and population, and we're finally falling into this noticeable bracket for a lot of these bigger businesses to look at us. And I talked to the Welland Park, Rick Severance. And Rick Severance was his whole focal point of the downtown was an education for me, because I'd seen it, been to it, been a participant at it, and I listened to him and how he talks about how he's structuring the downtown. I like a lot of it. I don't like all of it, but the funny thing is it's going to happen. It's going to develop. It's going to change, just like everything else. That isn't going to slow down either.
And the residents out there are already saying, no more.
No more. I know.
And read. We don't want any more.
Yeah. And it's like
hearing that. I've already been hearing,
and it's not done yet.
And that's in Welland Park.
Yeah, I know. And it's Welland Park, one of the fastest growing areas in the nation. And I still think it's in the top 10, if not higher than that. But it's on the charts. I mean, that's a portion of our city that has changed our landscape. It's changed who we are as a community because of what we have to offer there with the Atlanta Braves and other things that are happening there with the downtown strip. And there's a lot to be proud of that has happened within the walls of our city. And it's fun to watch. Scary at times, but it's fun to watch. And if you hate the word change, it's probably the worst place to be right now, because we're changing faster than people know how to even spell the word change. And do you think it's going to slow down?
Yeah, I think there might be a downturn at some point. Absolutely. I mean, nothing can stay going up without some kind of a self-correction. And that goes for development and for cities too. Don't know what that looks like. Don't know when that's going to happen. That crystal ball is also broken. But I do think that there'll be some kind of a downturn. God, I pray it's not like 2008, but some kind of a leveling off of some point. I'm starting to see that with the amount of people moving in and the number of houses that are for sale, compared to even a year or two ago, when you couldn't even find a house for sale. They make it on the market and they were gobbled up. I'm talking to you, that. Now there's
And
back
I
on the
never
market
bragged
for a
about that
little
either.
bit of,
I told them when they were posting all that stuff, take it down. Don't put my name on any of these things that you're bragging about, because this is ridiculous.
yeah,
That is not what the market. There's no
that's
sustainability in a market like that.
exactly.
You
Exactly.
know?
So yeah, I do see some self-correction. I think that we're starting to see a little bit of that. But
Well,
who
and,
knows?
and here's a plug towards Abby's Donuts. I was there the other day and got Uncle Dan some donuts. So Abby's Donuts in Northport is awesome. Uh, Chuck said today's social media beats the hell out of sitting around at Abby's discussing community affairs. And I, I would have
Yeah,
to
see, I
put
kind of miss that. I miss that
that, yeah,
face-to-face stuff. Social
I'd
media,
have to put all those generals that were there doing that.
yeah. I
They
remember
were
those
the
days.
yeah, those were some pretty
Those
unique
curmudgeons.
conversations.
But
Chuck
there's
also
something to
oh,
be
go ahead.
said about, the Appy's Donuts of disseminating information kind of atmosphere in today's social media atmosphere. Social media, you remove that face-to-face kind of dialogue, and you hide behind screens, or some people, they feel empowered to say whatever they want to say, but they would never say that in front of that same person.
Sure.
So
Again, we'll
that
platform.
part, that is one of the downfalls to me of social media. We are missing that personal interaction, and consequences and benefits of personal interactions, discussing these kind of things, because I like the face-to-face coffee with my fellow commissioners or at my town halls. The personal connection is really missing, and
How do you
hopefully
think we get that
someday.
back? Seriously.
How do we
I
how do we
mean
get that back?
that's like if you answer this question correctly, you're going to be a millionaire.
How do we get it back?
Yeah, how do you get it back?
You get it back when you have no power and you're going through a hurricane and you have to rely on your neighbors.
Yeah.
You get it back when
Oh, God
you,
bless the people that have gone through that and
yeah. Well,
are really going through some times. So
when we had Hurricane Ian, I knew my neighbors. I always, have talked to my neighbors. But I really got to know my neighbors. We actually ate dinner together. We had 5 houses that came together, and we would eat together and help each other the next day. It's that front porch kind of conversation, that camaraderie. That's what's missing in society. And sadly, that I think is one of the biggest downfalls of
well,
society. But how do you get that back? You really have to work your ass off for it. You really have to make it an effort.
blew up my childhood stories, because I tell everybody the childhood stories of coming home from church on Sunday and jumping on my bike and going front porch to front porch, having tea and cookies with my neighbors who I cut grass for and shoveled snow for and did all those things. And, we don't even have houses that have front porches on them anymore. They have a front door and they have a back porch with a fence around it. So
Yep. The other thing that you notice is houses being built now have smaller kitchens.
Yep.
And that's because people don't cook anymore. Anyways, those are the world problems, John. And I would love to sit and try and solve the world problems, but I know we've been at this for over 2 hours. So we're going to have to get it
You
wrapped
got
up.
the record now.
Because
You're in the record book.
my belly's starting to growl.
All right. I'm going to dinner myself.
Hey, John, I want to end it on this. I do appreciate everything that you've done with your radio station and taking that role on, because it was a very important role. And I remember when you took it on, it was Commissioner Carasone was still on the board. And I think it was right around the time that Commissioner Emmerich came on. So I'm going to say about 2018. Does that seem about right? 2018-ish?
Yeah, it's probably about that. Maybe
yeah, so
maybe
2018.
a tad before that, but
yeah,
I think
but not by much. But
not much.
It's been having this interaction with the commissioners every month is a important part. And I want to commend you for taking that role on, because you have carried it through this entire time, these 6 years. And now you've expanded it. And now you're kind of adding another layer to it. And that's fantastic. And I just, if I could end it with anything, is don't lose sight that there are the two sides. And I'm not saying don't you lose sight. Don't let the show lose sight that there are two sides. And, both are just as important as the other. And that's where the town halls are important. That's where the table talk is important. The porch talk is important. The Abby's Donuts curmudgeons are important, because you're able to hear all of the sides, and you're listening to the others. And when it gets a little heated, somebody goes and gets another cup of coffee, maybe comes back, maybe doesn't. But
there's plenty of times that we get Panera bread, and Chuck and I have gotten into it, and everybody looks at us, and then we walk out to the parking lot and we talk, and he walks me to my truck, and we're acting like we're best friends, because we are. The phone calls I have with Robin, we're friends. That's why we can have those conversations and just put things to bed and move on. These are all, and the reason I appreciate, and I thank you for saying that. The reason I know the show's not going to lose that viewpoint is what the show represents to the citizens. And as it catches more traction and more traction, there are voices that keep it voice to the citizens, because just like you, everyone who comes on goes through the same gauntlet of answering questions from the citizens. So all the citizens that participate have that privilege of asking this question, just like a town hall. I said this for the last 2 days now in conversations, that we're so damn lucky it's not funny, because we have a police department, a fire department, city hall, a city manager, and commissioners who all come on, and they all take Q&As from the citizens, whether you like the format or not. There's no other community that I can find that has this kind of engagement, and the information that comes out to the citizens through it, whether you like the information or not that comes out, you have to run with what you're told and then start working on it. But that should be where the citizens, I think you would agree with me on this. If you don't like what you hear, then get busy and start being involved. And that's where you get involved. That's where you start making your inroads and your inroads to changing things. So that 4-1 vote, you're not by yourself, not because you're one person, but because you have citizens and you count on them. I know you do. And
absolutely,
you get feedback just like the other ones get feedback. But that's why I think that the show's not going to lose its focus, is because the focus has never been about me. It's always been about trying to get the message out from you guys and have the voice be heard and have the questions come back. Even when it was just radio, people were still texting me questions, and I was podunk back then. I only had my cell phone to really get a question on the radio show. I had call-ins, and RJ's like, you actually had call-ins. People stopped doing call-in radio years ago. Well, it was old school. It worked for a bit. It worked forever. Social media does work much better. Chuck said, what was that you just said? Interesting is asking people getting involved, then chastise those that do. I don't think I chastised anybody to get involved. I did. Am I misreading that?
I'll let you and Chuck have that conversation. It's getting late.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I appreciate the compliment.
Anyways, just thank you for the interview. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for allowing me to be a guest speaker. I know that we don't always see eye to eye, and I think that was completely apparent in today's broadcast. But I have enjoyed being a commissioner and representing the citizens, my citizens, because I'm saying it, of the city of Northport. And I will always have a fond place in my heart for this role in helping this city become the greatest that it can be.
Sure. And I appreciate you taking your time out to be part of it. And whether we see eye to eye on these topics, we're still friends and it's okay.
That's right. Call me and we'll have that coffee.
I will. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Take care. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Bye-bye.